there was a lot of veiled language around these decisions too. I remember the resident kept coming in and saying, well, we really want you to think about what your goals are for Vigo. We'll have a conversation and we want you to think about what your goals are for Vigo. And it was that vague. And then she just would leave. And I'd be like,
we didn't understand what that meant.
What again, goals?
It's coded language again. Like, was the goal for him to be like, varsity soccer player?
Yeah.
Like, what are the
like,
goals?
Should my goal be like that my child might be able to like roll over, hold up his head, say a word? I mean, what are we like? I was thinking in terms of developmental goals and not like, do you want to intervene and do like invasive interventions, or do you want to do comfort care? Like that is, I learned later, most likely what she was referring to.
Yeah.
But that was never explicitly said. So there's a lot of coded language that is not helpful.
Even when people are trying to be helpful.
I think it was too sad too. It was just sad for them. I don't know. One doctor said to me at one point, and I did not, it was fine, but she said, you're living every mother's nightmare. And yeah.
Was that helpful or not helpful?
Well, it really acknowledged what I was going through. When I told other people about that, they were sort of horrified that a doctor would say that, but she was a mother too. And she had tears in her eyes and it was genuine. So I actually thought it was helpful because for a moment she was acknowledging our experience and not just dissecting my baby.
And saying it like in non-coded language, right? I mean, instead of saying like, I understand that this may be a relatively difficult time. Go.
Yeah.
It's or the whole like goals of care. If somebody had said like there's two roads to go down. One of them is your child's life is going to be short and comfortable, and the other one, your child's life is going to be maybe a little bit longer and very uncomfortable.
Or there could have been a lot more nuances to that, right? But it wasn't even presented at all as like, and actually, so the reason why I realized what she meant was like interventions versus comfort is because I found this group on Facebook. 99% of it was very unhelpful. It was less than 300 members for the trisomy 5P. But most of the members are children with partial duplication. So like some of them much, much smaller, like very small in terms of their, how they're affected. So like really healthy kids mostly. And then there were like 8 of the full 5P arm kids on there.
For the whole world.
Really. And I contacted the one mom who ended up being like an amazing resource for me, and no surprise, she's a social worker in Canada. But her first question was, are you going to do interventions or comfort? And she's put it, and I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, I still had, but she put it in those terms. And I think, I talked to a couple other moms in Canada, just, I don't know why that is how it happened. But they all use that language. So I don't know if it's something more common there. But I thought that was really helpful because I was like, now we're getting somewhere. Now I have, we're cooking with gas here because I have some concepts, to think about. And then I started, communicating directly. I communicated directly with 4 moms. They had a lot to say, all the things that you would never see on someone's social media account about their child's experience. So lots and lots of details about long hospitalizations for over like 50% of their young, first year. Respiratory infections, septic shock, long bone occult fractures, and treatment-resistant epilepsy, hydrocephalus, and the list goes on. But those were some of the most serious things that were causing folks to just sort of repeatedly land in the PICU, repeatedly end up in ambulances, the repeated codes.
And all that is so relevant, right? Because then like, okay, if I choose one path, like my child is going to experience all these things.
Right.
And
not no doctor, no nurse, no anyone was able to give us that kind of information. I had to look up every other word they were texting me. I did not know any of these words. I didn't know what a VP shunt was, and I didn't know what Ativan and all these other medical, medicines and what it meant to bag somebody. And I didn't know what any of that meant. And so it was like, it gave me all this vocabulary words to look up, to research, to understand what's an IOIV. What is, that's intraosseous. That's when they punch it through your tibia. Like, I never even knew that existed. So I was starting to educate myself on all of that, the different types of seizures. So that was they actually gave me something to understand. And I would then bring all that information to Theron, who was trying to work at the same time. As I sat in the NICU Vigo looking up all of these words on the internet. But then I started asking nurses, telling the nurses, this is what I'm learning, and asking them questions. And then they would share information with me about their experience with these different types of conditions. That was invaluable, because for just one example, is a tracheostomy is a tool. It's a tool that is appropriate, maybe in some circumstances. It's life-saving, and it can be, it can be the right choice, but it's a tool that can also not always fit every life and every condition in every family. And that's not how it was presented to us. It was just sort of like, we can pop a trach in, like, that's what you do. Or that's what you do if you're an ENT surgeon, who doesn't know anything else about your very complex kid that I never heard of this condition.
Again, the mechanics sort of mindset.
Yeah.
And as well, there's an awful lot of complications. I mean, Vigo, he did require 24/7 care, but if he had been, for example, vented and trached, he would have required like even more intense 24/7 care. And Medicaid will cover paying for that, but there's a labor shortage and there are no nurses. And so that's information that isn't out there. And when you we got a designation from Medicaid that said that we would have 56 hours a week of nursing paid for, and that was great. And we could cover maybe 8 hours. We could find somebody to cover 8 hours. And then we had to private pay people who weren't nurses to come at night so we could sleep. And then we still probably ended up staying up 3, maybe 4 nights a week. So we,
And that was not having to train people in like trach care. I just feel like the whole approach with this circumstance was sort of backwards and inside out, sometimes it takes, you're trying to think through a problem and you think all these things and think, and you sort of like get to the bottom line at the end. You're like, oh, right, now I've crystallized my thoughts, and we have to think about interventions. What do interventions mean in this body with this condition and this prognosis, or comfort, and what does comfort look like in this body with this prognosis? Like that was sort of like where we ended up, but we had to get there ourselves, and that could have just been handed to us at the beginning, please. Just hand that to us at the beginning. So I don't feel like I I'm literally on my own talking to people on the internet. And if I didn't talk to them on the internet, I would know nothing, because no one was able to like give us the information.